Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each week, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Good morning, badass.
Good morning, badass. How you doing?
I'm good. I think I'm fighting the beginning of a cold again. We have this vicious cycle going on in our house and in our friend group. It's like we have like 2 or 3 households that just cannot kick this, and we keep giving it to each other.
No.
So, yeah.
Okay, put everybody on vitamin C and
we go into our corners
exactly.
and get healthy. That's what I am going to propose.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, especially with the holidays coming up and things you start to wear down. And if you're not keeping yourself up and taking care of yourself, whether it's vitamins and rest and all of that stuff, your immune system really starts to take a toll.
Yes. And my one of my elder kiddos has his first relationship, and they are they're teenage love, and there's lots of little smooches happening, and and literally I saw her mom at the grocery store yesterday, and I was like, oh, I think I'm starting to get a cold. Let me hug you, but I'll keep my head away. She's like, it's the same cold, remember? And I was like, oh yeah, okay.
That's so funny.
It's a good thing.
Oh man, teenage love.
I know.
Oh, the heartbreak that comes from it.
I have these two. I have a feeling are quite well suited. So we shall see. Ooh. But it is very, very cute and to see. And they're just adorable.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, if you guys have arrived, let us know that you are here. And so just say hello to us. And so, Cate, I actually have a holiday party planned this weekend.
Yeah. So I didn't know this. Tell me more.
I know.
You told me like 2 minutes before we went live. You're like, I'm having a... So go on.
What I really hate is that I have so many people that I want to have come, but they're just not near me.
Yes.
Like I need to figure out, a way, I don't know. A virtual party just isn't always the same because you want to do the food and all of that. And so it should be lots of fun. And so we have people coming. It's always about the food, I feel. People are like, what can I bring?
Yeah. So is that what you're doing? Are you guys doing kind of like everybody bring something? Or is Jay cooking up a storm?
No, I'm going to be doing like a big charcuterie board type display and things like that. We're going to have a hot chocolate station, and, the adults will probably put some Irishmen in it or things like that. But I'm going to have different types of things for the hot chocolate. So like peppermint and whipped cream and chocolates and caramel and different things like that.
Marshmallows.
Yes, exactly. Got to have some marshmallows. And so that type of different things. So its own little hot chocolate station.
Aw, I love it. I love that. My dad is going to a holiday party like every day for like, I think it was like 8 days in a row or something. It was all of the different organizations. He's on a few boards. He works part-time. He's got, all these different things. So it's really funny. I was like, you are in the holiday spirit this year, and he was like, and then he paused. There was the silence. And then he goes, happy fucking holidays. We laughed for like 2 straight minutes. I was like, I wasn't expecting that, Dad. He was like, it's really good. I mean, He's done that before. That would be a random thing. Once in a while on Christmas, we would have, like, Merry fucking Christmas, and then erupting in laughter. But it was really good.
Now we really see where you get it, Kate.
Yes, exactly. And my mom used to say that she always had a story for she tried not to swear much around her kids, and she said, but then Mike is swearing and the kids are swearing. So she said, so then I was just like, fuck it. It was a great story.
Well, Carrie here said that something must be going on in the universe because in the past month she's had back injury, allergic reactions to medicine, ear infection, sinus infection, bronchitis. She said she's sick of being sick, so we need to send Carrie some good health vibes.
I hear you, Carrie. I am so sorry to hear all that is happening.
I know.
Yeah, take care of yourself. Oh, I think since my hysterectomy, I mean, I was on 3 rounds of antibiotics and then these colds, so
yeah,
I hear you. I am ready for some calmness and some just like stability around my health.
Yeah, and she said, and a partridge and a pear tree too. Stephanie's joining us. She said, good morning, friends. And then I'm not sure if this is Myra or Carmen or Jenna, but good morning, beautiful badasses. I have a feeling that might be Carmen. So
yes, or Jenna, because I do know she is awake this morning.
So. Oh, okay. Well, that's a rare thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Early. It is. I'm sure she's like not happy about it, but she does love it when she gets to catch BOYBAS. So on Fridays.
Jennifer Richards is here. She's Merry effing Christmas. Just say it, Jennifer.
And it was Carmen. Hi,
it is
Carmen.
I just felt the vibes of how it was said, but I thought it was Carmen.
Yep.
So, awesome. So today we have an amazing show that I think we've been excited about and we've been thinking about for quite a while. And it finally ended up being where the timing we feel like is right. And we're super excited. This is a coworker of ours that we're going to be bringing on today. And we're going to be talking about career decisions and sort of the crossroads of making decisions, but we're going to have different perspectives here. So you're going to have the person that was working at our company and, ended up deciding that they didn't want to work at our company. I was their boss. So you have that perspective, and then you have a coworker, and then Kate's going to be talking about her experiences of coming from the outside world of being an owner and then being here. Right. So it's going to provide so many different perspectives today.
Yes. Yeah, I am excited. And I just want to note that this colleague of ours, Mr. Joel Slater, he did not seek this out by any means. But as he tells his story, it'll be really kind of cool to see how it all evolved.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and bring him on. Let me get things switched over. There we go. Welcome, Joel.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sarah. Good morning, Kate. How are you all doing this morning?
We're doing well. We're excited about today's topic. It's going to be raw. I think there's going to be things brought up that probably neither of us or any of us knew about.
Yeah, I know. I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm looking forward to the discussion too. And thank you all sincerely for having me on.
We're excited about it. Well, Joel,
we adore you. We do. I mean, I remember when you gave your notice, and I know there's a backstory prior and that we're going to get into, but I remember when we would have our BOYBAS shows, Sarah and I would talk like in the half hour before, and we would be like, well, I'm still sad about Joel. she would be like, me too. And then then we'd be like, do we bring it up? Is it something we're going through? We're like, I don't know. We don't want to make him feel bad. But we're
That's sweet. I appreciate the comment, Cate.
So Joel, set the stage for us. Let us know where you're at now, what it is that you're doing, and then we'll sort of unwind this entire story. So just give people a little bit of a background of where you're at now and what it is you're doing.
Yeah. Well, again, my name is Joel Slater, and just a little bit of personal background. I live in Orange, Virginia, which is a small town in Central Virginia. It's a little bit outside of Charlottesville. I with my wife Danielle and also our 6-year-old daughter Julia. Julia actually just celebrated her sixth birthday just yesterday. Yeah, so that was fun and exciting. But anyways, I work with Sarah and Cate at Full Sail Partners, and we were talking earlier the fact that we don't often. I know that you all don't often discuss Full Sail Partners, but it's for obvious reasons very near and dear to all of our hearts. But I work at Full Sail Partners alongside Sarah and Cate. My new role here at Full Sail is Client Solutions Manager. And I'll be wearing a couple different hats at least here at Full Sail. But my primary responsibilities are going to be leading sales for our Black Box Connector platform, which is an integration platform that we've built, which is building pre-built integrations between the Deltek ERP system and popular third-party products. And also I'm going to be managing a select handful of our strategic accounts here at Full Sail Partners, who have a lot of professional services going on and need a little bit of extra project management, a little bit of extra coordination around a lot of the work that we're doing with again, a select handful of clients. So again, Client Solutions Manager here at Full Sail, which is a new thing for me. And I'm sure we'll probably get into that kind of content and themes, but that's the gist of it.
Yeah. Well, so let's also rewind a little bit as well. So let's go back to when you and I were first interviewing and you first came to Full Sail Partners. What is that? Like 7 years ago, 8 years ago at this point now?
Yeah, that sounds about right, Sarah. Back when I first started working at Full Sail, and thinking about it, and I'm not going to go back too far in my career, but that said, all throughout my career, I've been in software sales. I graduated college in 2004. I lived in Northern Virginia, which, as a lot of people know, is kind of the software mecca of the East Coast. Got a degree in marketing. My dad was always in software sales himself. So I was always exposed from an early age into the world of software. So naturally I got into software sales myself. And a little bit more background is the fact that I worked at pretty big software corporations and big software companies doing traditional software sales. And for the most part, I really excelled in it, and I think that I did quite well, but I never really fit quite that well into kind of traditional corporate software sales. I wasn't always as, it might sound weird for a software salesperson, but I wasn't coin operated, so to speak. I wasn't really that money driven. I wasn't even really that competitive. I wasn't that aggressive, all of these kinds of things. So I found myself in this role, but it really wasn't me. And then I got to know Sarah, and longer story long, I got to know Sarah because Sarah was a partner in the world that I was currently selling into. And I was very curious about what Sarah was doing there at Full Sail Partners. And anyways, I got to know Sarah and I realized the fact that I could do what I really love to do, which was selling software and working with our clients, understanding challenges and needs and positioning a solution. But I got to do these things in an environment which was much more attractive to me. And we'll get into it, but that was one of the reasons why I came over to Full Sail, was more of an experiment on my side to see if I could kind of transform myself into this different environment where, again, I'm doing the stuff that I love, but outside of that traditional corporate kind of sales role. And I came to Full Sail, as product sales manager, and I worked there for about 5 years before I made a decision to leave. But we'll get into that. So.
Yeah. And so I think it's important to talk about this piece right here, just because the mindset that I found sometimes with bigger corporations, and you came from a bigger corporation. And one of the things that we struggle with as we tend to sometimes partner with them is sometimes the sales philosophy of what we have and what they have don't always jive. Do you mind just elaborating a little bit more, since you have been on both sides of the house, a little bit more about the mindset of those different types of sales?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's there's a lot of common themes and common threads for people like me who are selling in a corporate software environment. It can be a very aggressive environment. It can be somewhat of a cold environment. And you are there for one specific purpose, to sell X amount of dollars that month or that quarter or that year. That is your sole mission. And you will essentially do what you need to do in order to do that. And again, most years I did rather well doing those things, but it's still, as I was alluding to earlier, it wasn't me, and it kind of forced me into a position, as it does for a lot of people who are similar to me that are able to continue to do those kinds of things. But it put me in a challenging spot. And I think that one of the biggest issues for me was, and it's a cliche amongst salespeople, but being, having to constantly measure kind of your self-worth on a monthly or quarterly or annual basis, where you are literally only as good as your last quarter.
Right. Or your month, right? Like
or your
month.
And that used to absolutely kill me, and it stressed me to no end. And I would hold myself to a very, very high standard. And I would beat myself up a lot when I didn't hit my numbers, things like that. And I say, gosh, I'm good at this. I know my product. I intimately know my client base. And I just really struggled with the concept of you are only as good as your last month or your last quarter or your last year, whatever it is.
Right.
But again, there was some. Go ahead, Kate.
Well, I was gonna say, when you're valuing yourself based on whether you're hitting these metrics or not, you're completely avoiding the fact that you're still good at it, whether you whether you are able to quantify it. That doesn't mean that you're not good at what you're doing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then coming to Full Sail, and over the years, Sarah and I have spoken about this extensively, and I'll probably do a poor job at kind of summarizing my mind state around everything. But here at Full Sail, and again, it was an experiment for me coming over here. I suspected that Full Sail I was reading context clues, reading in between the lines, getting to know Sarah. But again, it was an experiment, me coming to Full Sail with the hope that it was going to kind of deliver what I was hoping and what I was expecting. And sure enough, Full Sail really does provide, and this sounds like some sort of Full Sail commercial, and that's, as you all know, that's not my intent. But Full Sail really does provide that kind of environment, that kind of culture, if you will, that it's a little bit of a different sales arena and sales environment, where we have different values, different priorities in terms of the way that we sell. We sell very safely, very responsibly. We almost sell very reluctantly to our client base, because we're very careful. We don't have the time. We don't have the bandwidth to sell quote unquote bad deals, as I've told Sarah over the years, because we're the small group who has to deliver on these things. So again, we're pretty careful. And we are pretty reluctant sometimes to prescribe our solutions without a lot of vetting and a lot of thoroughness and a lot of carefulness before we put an agreement in front of one of our clients. I think clients are too used to, or have gotten overly conditioned to having, contract shoved in front of them, an agreement, and you are just going for that transaction so you can get that thing done. But it's different, and I like it. It's one of the reasons why I've always loved Full Sail, is because the different philosophy, the different kind of approach that we take to those things. It's refreshing for me, and I like to make it refreshing for our clients and stuff like that too. So
And it took a little while. Like he was programmed to like, you sell, you sell, you sell. And I was like, okay, so the thing you have to understand about our company is you're not going to just be able to hand off things from an implementation perspective and go, I don't have to deal with this anymore. And you're disconnected. And I'm like, because those people are in our company and they intimately will know you and they'll be like, what the fuck, Joel, did you just do? Like,
Yeah,
did you just
right.
sell me? Did you just sell something that we can't actually implement? I'm like, you don't want that to happen. So we have to make sure that we're selling responsibly, that what it is we're saying is what it is we're going to be able to do. And so it required slowing down. And salespeople get nervous at that because they're like, okay, but I'm going to be graded, on how much I'm selling. And I'm like, for me, it is more about quality than quantity, because the quantity will come when you're responsible and you develop a reputation of being known for doing things right, and for almost like you said, being a little bit like, sometimes I have told people, no, like, I don't think we're a good fit for you. And it's amazing when you do that as well, because they're like, what do you mean I'm not a good fit for you? All of a sudden they get offended.
Right.
And I've talked about this over the years, like when I was selling previously, it was like you were selling on an assembly line, and you sell a deal and you slide that thing down to the assembly line, and you don't know who the next person is fulfilling that thing, and you slide it very far away. But when you're at Full Sail, a relatively smaller company, you don't slide that deal that very far. It's just right down the line to these people there. And you're going to be tightly involved in that entire process through the actual solution delivery, all of those kinds of things. So you're exactly right, Sarah. So.
Well, and we would even talk personality, like as we're doing a deal, Cate, this, we do this, and we're like, okay, this person seems like they need someone that's like boom, 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 or this person needs someone a little bit more laid back, or, so we even sell on personality on the types of consultants that we think are a good fit.
Yep. And you're right, Sarah. It was so different. It was so different for me starting at Full Sail, and there was almost a culture shock. Even though it was what I was looking for, there was still a culture shock with selling in that kind of environment, getting to know you, your style, all of these kinds of things, which I grew to very much appreciate, obviously. But seriously, it was different for me coming from that corporate sales background where aggressive sales, and then coming here, and it took me a second to say, oh my gosh, this is truly how they do things here, and I like it. So.
One caveat I just want to kind of mention to our audience, because I think I have a unique perspective of having worked across many different industries, and I've worked with those large, sales and corporate entities where it's so number driven. And I've worked with a lot of small businesses, and it is still quite unique that Full Sail really does follow and walk the talk. So, there are a lot of smaller software or solution IT consulting firms that still do not truly do what is the right thing for the client, or what is the right thing for them. They still operate, or they believe that in order to become a larger entity, they have to be so number driven, and they don't understand the correlation between selling and delivering and retaining that client, right? So what we have here isn't about size. And that's all I wanted to kind of mention, is that it's really about fit and compatibility and culture.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I would mention is most people would also then most likely assume that as an organization, if you're not aggressive, if you're not doing those things from a sales perspective, well, you're probably not up at the top. And I would also mention that over the past 3 years, we've actually been the top selling partner. So you can do it responsibly. And I think the other thing that's really important, the thing that bothered me the most as I reflected some of the larger corporations that I mean, we would like do integrations with some of the other software, and our philosophy and their philosophy just didn't match. And I was like, what do you mean you're going to get fired if you don't, if you don't get this sold? Like, I'm like, how that would just like, that's just, I don't know. I can't even put the words, like the way you're treating people, that you're just treating them as a number and you're not really like understanding how you can grow them and how it is that you're treating them. I just didn't understand that philosophy. Like, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to like go, well, if you don't make this number, you know, basically I've spent all of this effort, you know, training you up and now I'm just going to get rid of you. I was like, how is that logical? I didn't understand that mentality, but I also wanted to show that it's also possible to do what we're doing and also be amazing and growing and accomplishing. And so that's where I think a lot of times the disconnect come for people is that if you don't have this type of mentality, you're not going to, you know, do all of these things. Well, it really needs to be a balance. Like, you have to balance your employees and understanding them and how it is you're going to grow them. And that's when things start to flourish, is because you actually care about them.
Yeah.
Yep. And it goes back to what I was saying, but I was curious, can I go do what I like to do and that I'm good at, but I don't have to worry about losing my job, whatever it is, being threatened passive aggressively or just straight up aggressively if I have a bad quarter or a bad year for that matter. They happen. So again, that was
because those aren't bad quarters. Those aren't bad years most of the time. Those are those are nurturing times, or they're building times, or you know. And on top of it, you know, there's a lot of long sales cycles involved in some of these organizations that are so focused on month end and quarter end, and yet there's still long ass sales cycles. So it doesn't even truly make sense a lot of the time. But I think we should share a little bit more about then kind of what it was like getting, you know, adjusting to that new culture, and then kind of what happened toward, you know, your end of your tenure here until you came back.
Yeah. And, you know, and I've gotten a little bit into already in terms of what it was like for me acclimating into that culture. And it took me a second. As I said, it was a little bit of a cultural shock for me, even though it is what I was looking for. It's like, oh my gosh, it's true. This is truly the environment that I was looking for. And I really enjoyed it. You know, I really enjoyed in my initial employment at Full Sail. I really enjoyed it. You know, it wasn't just sales. I was wearing a lot of different hats. I was trusted by Sarah with managing a small team of our account managers. So as their direct manager, I'd never managed anybody before. So that was kind of my first foray into management. There was operational things. There was IT. There was customer support. There was account management. So I was learning all of these different kinds of things that I never really had a lot of exposure into. So that was one of the other reasons why I really appreciated Full Sail, is that I got to wear a lot of hats in a good way and learn a lot of things in a lot of areas that I really had no exposure to previously. And I did all of these things for, you know, about 5 years at Full Sail. Very, very happy. And as I think about it, I was there for 5 years, and I remember even towards the end there that gosh, I could work here for another 5 years, if not longer. And that's been very rare for me ever in my career to think I've been here for 5 years and I can easily see myself here for another 5 years. I've never really had that feeling in my career in the past. Everything to me always felt extremely temporary and extremely fragile. And very delicate in my kind of previous jobs. This is very temporary. And I, along with all of my colleagues, are very much looking for their next thing. So, you know, so that's, it was one of the reasons why I appreciated Full Sail. And now the story takes what could be considered a bizarre turn. As I'm sitting here talking about how much I really did love Full Sail Partners. And so after about 5 years, you know, I guess I'll pretext this by saying I'm a pretty low key kind of guy. As people know, I'm not all over LinkedIn and doing all of these things. I'm not heavily advertising myself out there in the job market. I'm far from despite the context and themes of this chat, I'm not a job hopper. All of those kinds of things. I really value stability, permanency, all of these kinds of things. But anyways, all of that said, I got a note on LinkedIn I was on vacation. I was in California, and I remember getting a note on LinkedIn, somebody from a different company who I knew the company, I didn't know the individual, and he made an interesting proposition, something that if I might want to consider something, and it was a job that came with some shiny optics around it. It came with a little bit of prestige, kind of this outward facing kind of stuff. It came with frankly a pretty big, a big title, nice title, pretty significant step up in pay. And it would have been, and it was, a return back into the world from which I came. And I didn't respond to the message. It scared me. It was a little bit exciting. It was mostly scary. And I said, "Gosh, this is really interesting." And this is one of these things that can change everything. And it did change a lot for me. And I didn't respond to the message. And it haunted me for a little bit, and a couple of weeks later I did. Maybe you have that one bad day at work, you have that one frustrating experience. I'm gonna go respond to that. And sure enough, I did. And things happened pretty quickly. I'm sure most of the people listening understand that those things, you can kind of get swept away in those processes. And one thing leads to another. This call leads to that call, and you like what you're hearing, and you're doing well in your interviews and all of this kind of stuff, and you're quickly accelerating through the process, and all of a sudden you have a job offer. And for me, it was exciting, and it was a little bit exciting, but it was also very scary for me, because I knew that if I took this role, which I did, that it was going to put me in a tough spot, because it was going to force me back into that world from which I came, into areas that I would really, really need to challenge myself around, things that would really push me, really challenge me, good things. And we'll kind of get into those things, but anyhow, one thing led to another, and all of a sudden I had myself a job offer for this job, and I was. And I had to go through a very challenging decision process on my side, and do a lot of soul searching, and all of this kind of stuff. And I made the decision that holy cow, I'm going to leave Full Sail Partners. I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm going to go back to this world from which I came. I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to throw caution to the wind here, and I'm going to go experiment with this role and see how I do. So,
yeah. And what was it like? So when you were going through that decision-making process, what were some of the things that you had to deal with, or the thoughts that were coming up? And then what was it like to have to give your resignation? Yeah,
it was such a hard decision. Because I like Full Sail so much, and I loved you, and I love Sarah, as you well know. We had a very special thing. We had a special thing going,
right.
And it was so hard, because I think I may have even mentioned this, Cate, is that I might be walking away from. I probably said this verbatim. I might be walking away from what could be the perfect job for me and the perfect company for me, and those things are hard to find. Most people probably go their entire career without finding their perfect job or their perfect company. But here I was, I may have found it. And here I was leaving in exchange for a nice, a fancy title, semi-fancy title, more money, things like that. So, oh my gosh, am I really doing this? Is this the kind of person that I am? And I didn't know at the time. And I think I have a better understanding of who I am as a person now after going through that experience. But I didn't know, and and I there's a term that we've heard, cognitive dissonance. And I was struggling with a lot of cognitive dissonance where there's my heart was disagreeing with my brain, and it was disagreeing with my gut. And don't ask me you all asked me to define those things. I can't do that, but I know this, whatever it was. There was a lot of cognitive dissonance happening in my mind where there was just a lot of internal conflict, and that it was very stressful for me. It was a very stressful experience for me to include, I had to really work myself up, as Sarah knows, to go to Sarah and resign to her. It was really, really challenging for me. It was a very emotional day for me. It was a very tough time, and I remember sitting there having to, as soon as I sent Sarah this email that said, Sarah, she was on PTO, and I said, Sarah, I need to talk to you. This is urgent. And I knew a second that I was to hit send on that email that I was kicking in this chain of events that was and it was going to happen. And I remember sitting there and it's like, 3, 2, 1, I'm going to click and I'm going to send this email. And Sarah, I was on PTO, but she called me immediately. And I got on the phone with Sarah, and it took me a little bit of time to even get the words out to her. And
I don't think you actually got the words out from my recollection.
Yeah. Exactly. So it was a very emotional day for me, and we don't have to go into all of the gory details, but it was a rather emotional day for me, as Sarah can attest as well. And I explained what I was doing to Sarah, and I didn't know how Sarah was going to respond to this, and we don't have to get into all of the details, but there was a lot of considerations that Sarah was going to need to make around this decision that I was making, given some of the context, given the scenario, given some of the details. And I didn't know how Sarah was going to respond. And I remember Sarah pausing for 2, 3, maybe 4 seconds. And as we know, Sarah has a very good internal computer, and I saw her processing. I knew she was kind of processing this stuff. And I remember that Sarah, and I didn't know what she was going to say. I was scared. I was nervous. I was sad. All of those kinds of emotions. And I remember Sarah said that, look, this is a little bit out of character for me, but is there anything that I can do to keep you? And I remember at the time, that was really devastating for me to hear, because I didn't know. I've struggled, with confidence, all of these kinds of things. And you don't really know sometimes. You don't really know how much you're valued. And when Sarah said that, I said, oh my gosh, she wants to, I knew that Sarah appreciated me and valued me and all that stuff. And in fairness to Sarah, she did tell me that rather often, but as a result of my own insecurities, confidence, all of these kinds of things, it almost took me by surprise, and it made everything even more challenging. And I had to explain to Sarah that, look, I so very much appreciate you saying this. It means more than I can put into words, but I've made my decision, and I am firmly committed to making this move, in different ways. And I had to politely and respectfully decline Sarah's offer to try to work on ways of keeping me, in the organization. And ultimately I did. I explained to Sarah, and then Sarah, Sarah was, and again, there was a lot of considerations on Sarah's side, and she paused a little bit more, and then we put together a plan and detailed kind of the specifics of my exit and all of those kinds of things. But Sarah handled it very, almost like in a Zen-like state, very, very professionally, very courteous. All of that stuff, like almost making me feel better, because she could just tell that I was pretty broken up about what I was in the process of doing, and I don't know when the opportunity for me to share this, so I'll go ahead and share it now. But it's interesting, and it's kind of unfortunate. It's kind of nice. It's kind of all of these things that, I think whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, all of, that sometimes you don't know what you mean to a person or to a group of people until you decide to leave. until you decide to leave. And then people,
Mm-hmm.
then it comes out, and I got so many nice messages, and I got, be it, from Sarah, from Cate, but other people at Full Sail who I didn't know that I had an impact on, and then people reaching out to me and expressing me how sad they were to see me leave and how much they like working with me and all. And it was a big outpouring of support that made everything so much more complicated and so much more challenging and so much more sadness to me as I was departing out of the organization that I was already doing reluctantly. And it wasn't like people, and people were very supportive too. People were very supportive. They were wishing me well, all of this kind of stuff. And, fast forward to even starting at my new job. I think it may have been day one on my new job that I got notes from people. I got wishing me well on my first day at my new job, not just very sincere, very genuine, just showing of support. So hope I painted the right picture here, but that was in my mind, that was the kind of the way that things played out. So
Cate, if I can rewind, I wanted to sort of also explain how I felt during the process. So the moment I got, I think it was a text, I don't remember if it was an email or a text message from you, Joel. But when I received it, I immediately said, fuck. Because
you knew.
I knew. I just intuitively knew. I was like, wow. And I even said to myself, I had family there. I think it was, I remember why I had family there at the cabin, but I was just like, I think it was family. I can't remember, but I was like, I think Joel's quitting. And they were like, what? And I was just like, all of a sudden, all these things went through my head. And I was like, wow, I'm like, what did I miss? Like, one of the things that I always try to tell people is that if there's something you feel like needs to be addressed or adjusted, please come to me. Let me know. And this is one of the things I've even, talked to even my husband about. I was like, I can tell you from the experience of being an owner that if you're unhappy, go tell your bosses, like talk to them about it, give them a chance to deal with things. And so whenever it came, it really came out of the blue for me. Like normally I'm very intuitive and I can pick up when something's going on. I even have like Amanda Roussel, for example, like I can tell when she's under stress or, and her and I don't communicate as often as we probably should, but just, I tend to pick up on those types of things. And for me, this one came out of the blue because I was like, whoa, what did I miss?
Right.
And so, and the more that, at first I took it personally, and that's what we do as human nature, because I was like, what did I not do? What did I not see? Those types of things. But I remember getting on the phone with him, and Joel could not tell me that he was quitting. Like, he was like, give me a moment. And he was very emotional. And he's like, give me a moment. And he could not get it out of his words. And I said, Joel, I know why you're calling me. And I'm like, and I said, I understand, that you're resigning. I think I'm the one that ended up saying it because he could not say it to me. And so then that sort of broke, like he didn't have to say it. Now let's have the further conversation. But I do remember, just for me, I could tell he was very emotional about it, that it was a very hard conversation for him. And I just remember trying to reassure him, like, it's okay. Like, like it'll be okay type thing. And so it was just, in some ways, whenever I think back on it, a little bit of a surreal experience of sort of like reassuring someone that you can go, like, spread your wings and fly, type of conversation with someone. Because for me, the biggest thing that I always say as an owner or a leader is that sometimes we're a fit, sometimes we're not a fit. And sometimes you help people to grow as individuals that you outgrow them. And that's true in relationships as well, that sometimes you outgrow people. And that doesn't mean it shouldn't be taken as a negative. It just means you did your job. That you help this person have confidence to go seek something else. But I also think that in this opportunity, it also opens up other possibilities that had we not gone down this path, I think that things happen for a reason, that Joel would have been in the position he was in. And maybe there was a change that he really wanted, but maybe never really would have ever expressed that. And we never would have discovered the other opportunity that he's in now. And I always think that things happen for a reason.
From my perspective, because the three of us were a little team for a long time, you know, on the sales side, right? And it was brutal watching each of you kind of struggle through, you know, because I care so deeply about each of you. And I really loved our team, right? So I had my own disappointment. And then I also, you know, was watching two of my favorite colleagues, you know, both struggle with sadness. And, but what I really saw was this amazing, beautiful thing kind of evolve, you know. So Sarah was able to firsthand understand, for one of, I think, you know, the impact she really had. And she was able to kind of connect the dots towards, like, you know, I am always trying to grow people. And this time I grew him. I helped him grow so much that he, you know, had the confidence to go do this. You know, and for Joel, you know, just really getting to the point where you were ready to experiment again. And it was kind of a beautiful thing to witness. But at the same time, I also had this deep desire to stay connected, because I knew that this could very well, as all experiments go, right? This could very well end up, you know, with you not being happy, Joel, right? Because there's always that chance. And I wanted you to, you know, I wanted you to also have the confidence to try to come back, which is not easy, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think happiness is the right word. And I did move into the new role, and I won't go into all of the details. It was a good experience for me. You know, we can chalk it up to a good experience. Great people, all of that kind of stuff. But I struggled. You know, I struggled. My mental health was suffering. You know, lots of things. I was very, very, very stressed out. And you're right. I would talk to Cate, you know, occasionally, and I would chat with Cate, and it felt so good. It felt very good to talk, you know, even just on a friendly conversational basis with you all, staying in touch. And it's one of the things I think that, you know, and it gets us into this topic of keeping doors open. You know, not burning bridges. And it's one thing that I've always noticed about Sarah and you too, Cate. It's playing the long game. You know, it's not necessarily worried about tomorrow, but it's focused on a year from now, because time flies so quickly. And I've always really admired Sarah and you too, Cate, on your, you know, on your strategic thinking and kind of your ability to play the long game and to be able to see several moves ahead. You know, but again, it's keeping doors open, not burning bridges. It's a small world, you know, and a lot of things can happen, you know. So it's one of the things that I appreciated from you and Cate and everybody was just, you know, keeping open lines of communication, all of those kinds of things. So
I do have to say that the last day that Joel was here, we happened to have a company event, and the event was about the murder, or I can't remember the purpose.
It was the traitor.
That's it.
It was. Yeah, but back up. This was a company event, just so, like, we don't regularly talk about traitors. This was we do quarterly fun events, and this was a trivia thing. So we bring in another company that kind of facilitates an activity. So sometimes we're doing like desk yoga, and other times we're doing trivia. And so this particular one was a trivia game, but it was
You had to
centered
find
around
the traitor.
find the traitor, right? Yeah.
So people were joking around with Joel, and everybody was like, "Oh, is it Joel?" You know, because
I
he
wasn't
was
the traitor
reading.
in the game, but
I can tell you that it was that day that I don't know. There was something in your eye that I was just like, he's going to be back. Like, I don't know what it was, but I was like, I just felt like there was still like this connection that you had to us that it was almost like I wonder if I'm making the right decision. And but I was like, you know, the main thing that I really tried to focus on, and you and I even had a conversation later on as you were there. One of the things that you were dealing with was you were put in a situation where you had to immediately start being the report to everyone. So now you're the person facilitating and all of those types of things. And one of the things that I'm very deliberate about when I bring people in is that I don't put them in that type of situation. And the reason why is that this person needs to learn their position. Two, they need to learn what the other people are doing first that are going to report to them. So the last thing that I do, and I even with Joel's replacement, I told them, I was like, you know, at first you're not going to be their manager. Like, you need to build a rapport with them. You need to learn what it is that they do. You need to learn your position. And so as leaders, one of the biggest things I also want to sort of emphasize is that we sometimes can set people up for failure by immediately throwing them in and say, go lead these people.
yeah.
And so there has to be a gradual process. And so I remember talking to Joel about this. Still, here he is at another company, also a competitor, I will mention, but I was like still wanting to like mentor him. I was like, look, you know, and so he was like, I don't know what to do in this situation. So I'm like talking to him. I was like, if I was in this position, here's what I would do. And he was like, I'm writing this shit down, you know?
Yeah, which I very much was. Right. I was dropped right into it, you know, week 1, week 2, running meetings, running team one-on-ones, all of those kinds of things. And it was a struggle for me. It was tough. And it was then when you know, that you're reminded of the fact that, gosh, you do need to have a little bit more slower exposure into this stuff. And you need a chance to observe. You need a little more chance to absorb and absorb before you're handed, you know, before you're dropped right in. So, you know, so it was one of my stresses. And thanks for reminding me of that. And even coming back to Full Sail, you know, I remember saying, look, Sarah, it's important to me that you treat me like a new employee. Even I know Full Sail and I know a lot of the areas of the business, but it's important that you treat me like a new employee on my way back into the organization too, you know, with onboarding 30, 60, 90, beyond, all of those kinds of things. And that was another reason that gave me that extra comfort level. And I, you know, with being able to be onboarded back into the organization on a reasonable schedule. So it helps people like me tremendously. So, and I
think I told him I already had a plan out, and he's like, of course you do.
Right.
Yeah.
We have been planning for a while.
Yeah.
So, you know, some of the other things that I think that are important for people to really also understand is when you're thinking about going out and expanding out beyond where you're at, I think that it's important to understand how you're feeling. If you're feeling uncomfortable, is that fear? Because sometimes people fear success or sometimes fear failure versus your intuition. And so for me, that was, I think, the biggest thing is understanding those two things. So when you reflect back, and after you gave the resignation last day, you're now gone, you have this month off between, do you think that you had within that period of time fear? Or was it intuition telling you that you may or may not have made the right decision?
I think it was I think it was a healthy mix of both of those things. I'm a nervous person by nature. I have a lot, and not very flattering, but a lot of nervousness, a lot of anxiety, all of those kinds of things. So those things were very much an overdrive with me. But I think mostly, I think that it was more so intuition saying, you know what, there's the, you could have made a mistake, and that was one of the things that was tough for me as I was trying to reconcile those things during that time. But I think that it was mostly intuition versus fear, but still plenty of fear mixed in too.
Right. Which is hard. That makes it so much fucking harder.
Yeah.
Right. So like, am I just terrified or is my like higher self telling me to do something different?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just a complicated place to be.
Yeah, exactly. And fortunately, I'm able to chalk it up to a good growing and good learning experience. Realizing additional things that I'm good at and areas that I excel in, but also some limitations that I have. Some limitations that I have in my own career just as a person. And again, these might not all be very flattering points, but it's just the reality of who I am, what I'm capable of handling, stress management, which can be rather poor at a lot of times, things like that, things I need to work on. But it helped me to make a lot of realizations about myself that I think are going to help me make future decisions in my career and in my life too. So it was a good growing and learning experience for me, fortunately. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just said thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's a vulnerable thing to share, to talk about, the awareness that you developed of things that you still need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many people that don't have that awareness. And then once they are aware, they certainly don't want to bring it up. Like,
yeah. And, well, exactly. And it's always been important to me to always be as honest and transparent as I possibly can, because it helps me in so many different ways. It helps me in life. It helps me sleep better at night. It helps me with everything. So I try to be as transparent and honest about everything as I possibly can, to include at the organization where I was at, in terms of explaining my situation as best I could, to give them some insights in terms of what ultimately led to this decision. Why am I leaving? All of these kinds of things. And again, they weren't all very flattering points about myself, but they were still just grounded in honesty and transparency, which I like to think that they appreciated, to help gain a better understanding of my thought process and decisions and stuff like that too. So,
and I think the biggest thing that I also want to point out about you is that you're a professional when it comes to all of this. And, in the resignation, in how you handled things as you were leaving, and then even the courtesy and the professionalism of then going back to the company and saying, here's my thought process and where it is that I stand. So I also want to just applaud you for that, because so many times people, as they're saying goodbye, they're throwing caution to the wind and just going, like, fuck it. And I want to go back to something you said, because this is what I really feel, is that you have to be careful about burning bridges. So even in saying goodbye, you can still do it in love. You can still do it. And whenever I say love, it's just kindness. It's being respectful of the company that you're leaving, where it is that you're going. And then as you are, looking at, this isn't a fit, had you had burned bridges, the opportunity to come back wouldn't have been there. you know, and so I just want to sort of point that out for people, that it's that I think is, and it's also important on the employer side of the house as well, doing things that are right by people, in understanding that this person might come back. And I will point out, we actually have a couple of different boomerang employees, just because they go out and sometimes the culture isn't necessarily maybe what fits them, and they're like, wow, okay, I really enjoyed the culture back at Full Sail. And a lot of times they come back, or they reevaluate things. And so there's a balance of really understanding what's important to you. Sometimes you're in a growth mode of, you know, I need money, I need money, I need money. Other times you get to a point where you're like, okay, is the money good? And then where I'm also looking at, am I being valued? Am I being respected? Do I have a great group of people that I'm working with? Do I enjoy the work that I'm doing? Sometimes I feel like people, as I hear out in the market, people that are just, that all they talk about is money. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, as a leader and an owner, I'm like, really? Is that all that people care about? And then I look at people internally with us. You know, we want to be able to make people successful and be able to take care of their families and things like that. But that's not the end all be all. Like, if you don't have a job you enjoy, people you enjoy being with, a culture that fits who you are, how miserable can you be and still make lots of money and be happy?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much to unpack, you know, if we had more time in a discussion like that, but it's true.
Right.
And it's one of the things that I realized about myself. And again, I want to be careful with positioning it, because it can be weird to some people, you know, it can be weird, but I'm not that. I have enough money. I'm very fortunate. My wife and I are in dual income earning positions, all of that, all of those. We're not the wealthiest people in the neighborhood, and we never will be, but we make enough. And I have the luxury of being able to make career decisions that allow me to seek a company that better align with my values, you know, culturally, all of those type of things, even if you make a little bit less money, you know. So again, that's a luxury. That's a perk in my life that I have. Not everybody has that, you know. Some people have to make tough decisions out of necessity.
Right.
And again, it was a privilege that I had to be able to make these kind of career decisions and seek a employment that's more sustainable, better mental health, better cultural fit, all of those kinds of things. So
I love that you're making that point. I think that's that just resonates, I think, with me personally. You know, it is a privilege to be able to be in that position. And I think what's at the base of a lot of this, and a lot of who you are, Joel, is integrity, right? Like, you, when I think of you, outside of, you know, my personal feelings for you, because I adore you, you know, and you know that, but outside of that, when I think of you objectively, all that honesty, all that awareness, all that dedication, it's really like you embody integrity, you know, as a person. And I think that integrity and your unwillingness to stay in a position that isn't making you happy is wondering, like, the fact that you are able to act on that and reflect back on all of that is so cool, first of all. But, you know, think about how many people in your exact position, like, we can talk about a privilege. You didn't burn a bridge, so you were able to come back. Like, that's a luxury. But you know what? So many people will not even fucking do that because they don't value their happiness. They don't have integrity. They'd rather live dishonestly, and because they don't want to be perceived as coming back with their tail between their legs, or they don't, whatever fear they have. Here you have a shit ton of fear, but you also have a shit ton of integrity, right? So that's you know, that's such a cool mix, and with the awareness that you have. So
and I mean, I've always been a very humble person who a lot of humility. I had to look up the word humility. Is this a negative word? And as the internet told me, no, it's not a negative word. It's, in fact, it's a very positive thing. And I've always carried with me a lot of a lot of humility, a lot of humbleness, which helps people like me to go back to return to somewhere from which they came, and it's not a negative thing. It's not whatever. I have made a decision in the interest of myself and in my family, and I'm very happy about it, and it's okay,
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah. I want to pull up some of the comments just so you know.
Yes.
So Kim said, "Good morning, all three of you badasses. So happy you're back, Joel." And I think that you were probably overwhelmed the first day you came back too. Like it was, I don't know for you, but it was just flooding we have a company group. And so the day he was back, everybody was like, "Yay, Joel's back."
Yeah, it was very nice. It felt so good on that. Well, it's felt good I've been here for a little bit over a month now, but but that first day back was really nice to see all those nice comments.
Yep. And Stephanie said, "I have so much respect for you and your team." Myra was joining us. Carrie said, "I thought this was really good. Sometimes you have to leave a place to really grasp its value. Human nature propels us to see what else is out there. Career curiosity is real."
I love that. So true, Carrie. Thank you. That resonates a lot.
And then she also added, "I have the benefit of multiple work environments, so I know a good one when I'm in one. But for younger folks with only one job under their belt, they don't know. And sometimes they have to experience it for themselves."
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then someone said, "Joel is the best." That is all.
So true.
Renee or Stephanie said, "Mark of a great leader." And then Renee said, "Good morning, everyone. It's so good to see you three together. Love all the smiles. Happiness is the key to life." And then I think some of the things we were talking about, Bruce said, good point. I think as we were talking about not burning bridges, but also understanding the things that are really important in life and in finding a job. So,
right.
Yep. And I know our time is short here because we have to wrap it up. But as I've told you, Sarah and Cate, I want to thank you so sincerely, so genuinely from the bottom of my heart for everything that you all have done for me and my previous employment at Full Sail Post. You all are so very good and kind to me, and I so very much appreciate it. Your friendship, both personally and professionally, and all of that stuff. So I'm not always good at saying it. In fact, I can often be quite awkward as I try to, but now say thank you all so much, sincerely.
Aww.
Yeah, we enjoy you. We enjoy you not only as an employee, but as we've always seen you as a friend too. And so, one other thing I did want to share is that we have done one of the things we started to do was exit interviews. And I did want to bring up, Joel did an exit interview with Tasha, and then also let him know that I would then listen to it. And never in my life would I ever have thought that an exit interview would make me cry. And as I was listening to Joel's exit interview, it was at that moment, that's when I realized, because here I still had that wondering of what it is that I didn't do, didn't hear or didn't notice or things like that. It was in that moment that I felt like I learned a lot about myself as a leader. So I just wanted to thank you for helping me to also understand the things that are important as a leader. That we talk about culture, but one of the things that I think is also important is in a culture, if you're not growing, helping people grow, but also if those people are not helping you grow as a leader, then that's something to evaluate, because the culture that you have continuously has to evolve as you bring on other individuals. And so I just wanted to thank you, because it also helped me to understand, I think, more about myself and some of the things that I excel at and the things that I need to continue doing. So I just wanted to say that as well.
Thank you for the comments there and for the sentiments, Sarah.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Oh, and Bruce said he was referring to the career curiosity. I think it's a tremendously important topic. Yeah.
It's a good way of, I think it's a good way of saying it. Career curiosity. It certainly got the better of me.
Right. Because like in other avenues in life, you get to try something out for a while, right? Like
Sure.
if you want, like if you think to yourself, oh, I want to become a dancer, you could take some dance classes and you can back off, but with our careers, even though we spend so much time doing it, but we don't get the opportunities to just try something out. Like, I want to see what it's like to be this, I want to see what it's like to be this.
Yeah.
And we don't, so it
I
is
mean,
a
I want to encourage people too. It's, it's be bold, be courageous, make daring career decisions. I would be silly not to say that. Most people find themselves in great positions as a result of all of those things. But I guess also just carry with you the humbleness and the humility to sometimes return from where you came. If things didn't work. And that it goes back to keeping open doors and not burning bridges and things like that. So, but be bold, be courageous. We have to do those things, so.
Yeah, you do. I do think that is important to try new things. I think it's also important to evaluate who you are and whether things are truly a fit too.
Yeah.
I think that it's great to expand. Don't let fear hold you back, but also sort of do that gut check to see whether is this really like, what are my values? And this is one of the things Cate always said is what are my values and do my values align? That's why we always ask questions about culture. Like, what are you, help me understand a little bit more about culture wise, what's a fit, what's not a fit, because sometimes we're not a fit for people as we start to ask those types of questions because they're really, they're in a different stage of their career, for example.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's a very kind of a delicate balance between career growth and career aspirations and ambitions and your own kind of personal well-being and kind of your mental health, and it can be a very, again, it can be a really gentle balance there, that sometimes people have to go out there and explore and find for themselves and go through those learning experiences. So like me.
And so based on the comments, it sounds like we need to do an additional episode on career curiosity. Yeah. And so he said he would love to hear Carrie's thoughts on that. And so I don't know if that's a term that Carrie has heard or if she just invented it today. So career curiosity.
I love it.
So Joel, last, ending thoughts as people are thinking about career decisions and things like that. Any final thoughts you would want to leave them with?
I think it kind of just goes back to one of the things that I just said. And it really is that I think it is important that people be bold, take some chances, surprise people in your life, just like I did. But also know, that it's sometimes okay to return from places where you came, so I don't know. It's not putting the bow on it that I wanted to, but it's just been kind of my experience, so.
Yeah. Be open to the flow. Don't burn bridges. Understand that it's great to take chances, and sometimes it provides you an opportunity that maybe you never would have gotten, but it might be returning back to the place that you once were at. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we all have to ride the waves of life, right? And when you do so in a way that is kind and humble and full of integrity, yet boldness, you never know what you're going to uncover. You never know what that next wave is going to be.
And I don't know if it makes sense, but the way I think about it, it's kind of like life is short, but careers are kind of long. And you got time. You got time to do a little bit of experimentation and to be career curious and all of those kinds of things. But just be in touch with your true self, and who you are as a person and your own personal well-being and all of those kinds of things. And you'll be okay.
I really like that. So life is short, careers are long, experiment.
Yes.
And, you know, and
Yes.
I think that that's also a little bit of what Kate and I are doing. Like we have this side gig.
Mhm.
And, you know, sometimes it's learning. It's learning about yourself. You're not necessarily making money, so, we don't make money on this, but we're learning so much. And we're also making
Mhm.
connections in so many other ways and expanding ourselves. And so sometimes it might be what I have found is that you still have what it is you do, but it might be something else that you're supposed to do to allow you that creativity or allow you to
Mhm.
expand in some other way. So it might be that side hustle.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this was a great conversation today. I really appreciate you being here, Joel, and opening up. And as you both know, I've faced big career decisions in my lifetime as well. So I know
Mhm.
it's not easy, but I think it's like Joel said, life is short. You have to do what you have to do all the things. You only get one chance at this.
Yeah.
But careers are such an important aspect. So they are long. That is the long game, right? So
Yeah. And this
it's a
person said,
real, I was gonna say this has
Yeah.
been a real dialectical conversation, right? There's like
yeah,
so many sides of this. And I think when you have a dialectical place, like when you have black and white together, or be bold, but follow your gut, um, where you meet in the middle is a place of radical acceptance, right?
Yeah.
So like
Mm.
you just got to accept life as it is, and that it is dialectical, and
Yeah.
at the end of the day you'll find a balance, if you follow, if you let happiness be your
Yeah.
marker.
Thank you, Kate. My message here is kind of tricky. It's kind of nuanced, but I think you helped to put a nice bow on it there too. So
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. And Joel, thank you so much for being vulnerable and opening up and talking about your experience with us. And I just really love this conversation. I think that we could have probably gone on probably 3 more hours. And I feel like we only just scratched the surface
yeah.
today,
Right.
even
Maybe
on
we'll
career
listen.
decisions. Yeah. So, but
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you both for having me.
All right.
Awesome.
You want to end
Thank
things,
you.
Kate?
Yeah, let's let this, place of radical acceptance kind of fuel our Friday. We're and our weekend and our week ahead. We are all faced with riding the waves of life. So go out there and enjoy your life, and come back to us next Friday as we can hopefully enjoy more time together.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks again.
Thanks.